In the quiet corners of the human heart, there lingers a voice that echoes across the ages, a voice that once spoke in gardens and deserts, tabernacles and stormy seas, the same voice that whispered through the leaves of paradise and thundered from the burning bush. That voice is calling again today, not with anger, not with distant thunder, but with the tender urgency of a father who knows his child by heart. Imagine a young boy named Samuel lying on his simple mat in the house of the Lord, the oil lamps flickering low, the night air heavy with silence. He had served faithfully under the old priest, yet his own ears had never truly caught the divine whisper until that fateful night, when the call came soft at first like the rustle of wind through ancient olive trees. Samuel, Samuel, the boy stirred, thinking it was his mentor calling for water or counsel. He ran to the elder only to be sent back to rest again. The voice returned, persistent, gentle. Samuel, Samuel. Once more the child rose, confused, hurried to the priest, who this time understood. The Holy One was speaking. The old man instructed the boy to lie down, and if the voice came again, to answer, "Speak, Lord, for your servant is listening." When the call sounded a third time, Samuel opened his heart fully, and the words that followed shaped a nation. The voice that called his name twice in the darkness was preparing him to become the prophet who would anoint kings and guide a people through turbulent times. Centuries earlier, on a lonely mountain path, a shepherd named Moses tended his flocks. The man who had fled his past as a prince now lived in obscurity, his hands rough from labor, his heart burdened by memories of failure. Then from the heart of a bush that blazed without being consumed, the voice rang out, "Moses, Moses." The shepherd drew near, removing his sandals on holy ground. The call was not merely to curiosity, but to courage, to return to the land of his birth, to confront a mighty ruler and lead an enslaved nation toward freedom. The one who called his name twice knew the doubts that whispered in Moses' mind, yet he promised presence and power, turning a reluctant fugitive into the deliverer whose footsteps parted seas and whose words carried divine law. Even further back in time, a man stood with knife raised over his beloved son on a rugged hill. The test of faith had reached its peak. The wood was laid, the fire prepared. Then, piercing the heavy silence, came the urgent cry, "Abraham, Abraham." The father lowered his hand, the angel stayed the blade, and in that moment provision appeared. A ram caught in the thicket. The call, twice spoken, halted destruction and reaffirmed covenant. The one who called knew the depth of obedience and rewarded it with blessing that would echo through generations. Think of the weary traveler on the road to Damascus, breathing threats and murder against the followers of the way. Suddenly, a light brighter than the midday sun engulfed him, and the voice spoke, "Saul, Saul, why do you persecute me?" The man fell to the ground blinded, yet awakened. The call came twice, with piercing clarity. The persecutor became the apostle. The one who once scattered the church now carried its message to the ends of the known world. His name changed his heart, transformed his life, a living testimony that no one is beyond the reach of that persistent, loving voice. In a humble home, a woman named Martha bustled about preparing a meal. Her sister sat listening at the feet of the teacher. "Martha, Martha." The gentle rebuke carried no condemnation, only invitation to choose the better part, to sit and receive rather than strive alone. The call, twice spoken, reminded her that presence matters more than performance. These stories are not relics of dusty scrolls. They are living patterns. The same voice that called in the past calls still today. It calls in the noise of crowded streets, and in the hush of sleepless nights. It calls through the ache of loss and the thrill of unexpected joy. It calls your name not because you have earned it, but because you are known intimately. Every hidden scar, every unspoken dream, every quiet failure is already seen, and still the voice calls with hope. Picture yourself in the stillness. Perhaps you have wandered far, chasing shadows of success or hiding from shadows of shame. Perhaps the weight of yesterday presses heavy, or the uncertainty of tomorrow clouds your vision. Yet in the midst of it all, there comes that familiar tug at the soul, a whisper that feels both ancient and brand new. It is the voice saying your name, not once, but with the emphasis of deep affection. Come closer, lay down the burdens. Listen with open heart. The call is personal. It knows the sound of your laughter and the taste of your tears. It remembers the child you once were, dreaming under starlit skies, and the adult you have become, carrying responsibilities that sometimes feel too large for human shoulders. It calls like it did for the boy in the temple, because it wants to raise up a voice that speaks truth, In confusing times it calls like it did for the shepherd because it sees potential for leadership even in those who feel unqualified. It calls like it did for the father on the mountain because it tests and then provides. It calls like it did for the traveler on the dusty road because it can redirect the most determined opponent into the greatest advocate. When that voice calls, it rarely shouts above the clamor of daily life. Instead, it waits for the moment when the heart grows quiet enough to recognize it. Sometimes it comes through a scripture that suddenly leaps alive, sometimes through the kindness of a stranger, sometimes through an inner conviction that refuses to be ignored, sometimes through a dream or a song or the beauty of creation that stirs something deep within. Whatever the form, the message remains consistent. I know you, I have plans for you greater than you can imagine. Turn toward me and find rest, purpose, direction, forgiveness, new beginning. Many today mistake the call for coincidence or conscience. They brush it aside as fleeting emotion or wishful thinking, yet those who have answered know the difference. Life before the call feels like wandering in circles. Life after feels like walking a path lit by unseen light. The fisherman drops his nets, the tax collector leaves his booth, the ordinary person steps into extraordinary service, not because they suddenly become perfect, but because they become available. The voice does not demand flawless performance. It asks for willing presence. Here I am, send me, or simply speak, Lord, your servant hears. The call comes with both comfort and challenge. It comforts by reminding you that you are never truly alone. The creator of galaxies knows your name and cares about the details of your days. It challenges by inviting you to leave behind what holds you back, old habits, old fears, old identities that no longer fit the new creation you are becoming. It may ask you to forgive when bitterness feels justified, to step forward when retreat seems safer, to speak when silence is easier, to trust when evidence is scarce. Yet every time the call has gone out in history, those who responded discovered that the one who calls equips, the one who calls provides, the one who calls walks alongside. Consider how the voice called a dead man from the tomb, Lazarus, come forth. The call was specific and powerful enough to reverse death itself. It calls today to those feeling spiritually lifeless, to those trapped in patterns that drain life, to those mourning dreams that seem buried. It speaks life into dry bones and hope into hopeless situations. The same power that raised the dead is available to awaken dormant faith and resurrect abandoned purposes. In the garden after the resurrection, a woman stood weeping, her heart broken by loss. She mistook the risen one for a gardener until he spoke her name. Mary, the single word, carried recognition, love, restoration. In that moment, sorrow turned to joy, despair to mission. The call of her name launched her to tell others he is alive. The voice still speaks names today, turning mourners into messengers, broken people into bearers of good news. You may wonder why the call seems to repeat, sometimes why it lingers, why it returns even when ignored. It is because the one who calls values relationship more than ritual. Persistence flows from patience, the same patience that waited for a runaway prophet in the belly of a great fish, the same patience that pursued a denying disciple after a courtyard fire, the same patience that knocks gently at the door of every heart waiting to be invited in. The repetition is not frustration, it is love refusing to give up easily. When you finally respond, the transformation begins gradually, at first like dawn breaking over dark hills, then with growing clarity. The fears that once paralyzed lose their grip, the doubts that once shouted grow quieter, the purpose that once felt elusive comes into focus. You may not see the full map ahead, but you will have the next step illuminated. You may not understand every why, but you will know the who holds tomorrow. The call extends to every season of life, to the young with dreams unfolding, to the middle-aged carrying loads of responsibility, to the elderly reflecting on years gone by. It calls the successful to use their platform for higher good. It calls the struggling to find strength beyond themselves. It calls the lonely to discover belonging in divine friendship. It calls the angry to release into peace, the addicted to freedom, the proud to humility, the timid to boldness. No situation is too messy, no heart too hardened, no past too stained for the voice that spoke creation into existence to reshape a life. Listen carefully in the coming days. Set aside moments of intentional quiet. Turn off the constant stream of voices from screens and schedules. Create space where the still small voice can be heard. It may not come with fanfare or visible signs at first, but it will come with peace that surpasses understanding, with direction that aligns with eternal truth, with love that casts out fear. The one calling your name today is the same who called in the past the God of Abraham, Moses, Samuel, Martha, Saul, the God who became flesh and called disciples by the sea, the God who calls you now not to a life of mere single stone cast into still water, changing families, communities, even generations. So if you sense that tug, if you hear the whisper, if the name echoes in your spirit, do not delay, do not dismiss, do not defer the invitation. Stand like the boy in the night. Say, "Speak, Lord, your servant listens." Open your heart like the shepherd at the bush. Remove anything that hinders approach. Draw near, receive the commission, embrace the change, trust the provision, walk in the new direction. The voice that called in the past is calling still, and it calls with a future filled with hope and a love that will never let you go. In the end, the greatest adventure any life can know is the journey of answering that call. It leads through valleys and mountaintops, through trials that refine and joys that refresh, through questions that deepen faith and answers that satisfy the soul. It is a call to come home, to the heart of the one who formed you in secret and knows you completely. A call to live fully, to love deeply, to serve humbly, to trust completely. May you hear it clearly, may you answer boldly, may the voice that spoke your name continue to guide every step until the day when faith becomes sight, and the call echoes into eternal welcome. Well done, good and faithful servant. Enter into the joy prepared for you from the foundation of the world. The call has gone out, the choice remains yours. Respond and discover the beauty of a life lived in harmony with the one who knows your name and calls it with perfect love. The story continues in your life today. The pages are not yet finished. The pen is in divine hands, yet your willingness writes the next lines with courage, with surrender, with expectation. The voice that called Samuel in the night calls you. In this moment, the voice that called Moses from the bush calls you from whatever wilderness you face. The voice that called Abraham on the mountain calls you to trust beyond what eyes can see. The voice that called Saul on the road calls you to turn toward truth. The voice that called Mary at the tomb calls you to new life and mission. Every sunrise is a fresh invitation, every breath a reminder of grace, every opportunity to choose kindness or honesty or forgiveness is a chance to echo the call in your own actions. The world needs those who have heard and responded, those whose lives become living letters written not with ink, but with transformed character, people who carry peace in chaos, hope in despair, light in darkness. Do not wait for perfect conditions. The call rarely comes when everything is tidy. It comes in the middle of ordinary days, in the middle of struggles, in the middle of celebrations. It comes because the time is right for your part in the larger story. The tapestry of redemption being woven across history has a thread reserved with your name on it. Pick it up, weave it in with the colors of your unique experiences, your gifts, your story. As you go about your days, keep ears attuned to the whisper, watch for the signs, listen for the repetition. When it comes twice, pay close attention. Something significant is at hand, a turning point, a new assignment, a deeper revelation, a healing word, a commissioning for greater things. The God who spoke to ancient hearts speaks to modern ones. The language may differ, the medium may vary, yet the heart of the message remains. I am with you, I have called you by name, you are mine. Let this truth settle deep within you. The call is not a burden. It is a bridge from where you are to where you are meant to be, from confusion to clarity, from emptiness to fullness, from lost to found, from ordinary to ordained. Walk across that bridge with confidence, knowing countless others have done so before you and found the other side more beautiful than they could have dreamed. The voice continues calling through the words you read, through the thoughts that stir, through the circumstances that align, through the peace that settles. When you turn toward it, it calls, because love always seeks connection. The Creator desires fellowship with the created. The Father longs for His children to come home, to His presence, to His purposes, to His peace. In closing, remember this: the call that went out in the past is the same call sounding now in your life today. It is personal, it is powerful, it is patient, it is persistent, it waits for your response. And when you give it, even in weakness, even in hesitation, even in small steps, the journey begins, the transformation unfolds, the adventure starts, the legacy takes shape. Your name has been spoken by the one who matters most. Now is the time to answer with open heart and ready hands. Speak, Lord, your servant is listening. The rest of the story awaits your yes. Here is the continuation of the fresh, original script in the same flowing narrative style, adding roughly 5,000 characters of new, unique content. No headings, no numbers, no copied material, just continuous inspirational prose building on the theme of the divine voice calling your name today, just as in the past. As the voice lingers in the quiet spaces of your soul, it brings with it an invitation to remember that every calling carries within it both a sending and a staying. The one who calls your name does not merely summon you for a moment of awe then leave you to wander alone. Instead, the call establishes a lifelong companionship, a walking together through every season. The same presence that spoke to the boy in the temple remained with him as he grew into a trusted advisor to kings. The same presence that met the shepherd at the burning bush never departed, even when the road grew long and the complaints of the people grew loud. The voice that called once keeps speaking, guiding, correcting, comforting, encouraging. The call is not a single event, it is the beginning of an ongoing conversation that reshapes everything it touches. Think of how the call often arrives wrapped in unexpected packaging. For some, it comes during seasons of success, when everything seems to be falling into place, yet an inner restlessness signals that there is more. The voice whispers that achievements apart from deeper purpose feel hollow. It invites the successful to lift their eyes beyond personal gain toward using their influence to bless others, to build what lasts beyond temporary applause. For others, the call sounds clearest in the valley of disappointment, when plans crumble and dreams seem delayed. There in the dust of what did not work, the voice speaks your name with gentleness, reminding you that failure is never the final word. It is often the fertile soil where new growth begins. The one who called the denying disciple after his greatest fall restored him with a threefold question of love, turning shame into renewed mission. The same restoring voice calls today to anyone carrying regret. It offers not condemnation, but commissioning. The call also carries a beautiful simplicity that cuts through complicated religious expectations. It does not require you to climb mountains of self-improvement before you can respond. It meets you exactly where you are in your current strength and in your current weakness. The fisherman did not need to master theology before he was invited to follow the tax collector, did not need a perfect record before his name was spoken with. Love the voice simply says, "Come as you are, bring your questions. Bring your doubts, bring your ordinary days, and watch how they become extraordinary in my hands." This simplicity is liberating because it removes the pressure of performance and replaces it with the power of presence. The call is less about what you can do for the caller and more about what the caller longs to do through a willing life. When you begin to answer the call, small shifts start to appear. At first, they may seem insignificant, a kinder word spoken instead of a harsh one, a moment of patience extended where frustration once ruled, a choice to pray when worry threatens to overwhelm. These little yes accumulate like drops of rain filling a stream until the current becomes strong enough to carve new paths through the landscape of your character. Over time, the voice that called your name begins to echo through your actions. Your decisions carry a different weight. Your words carry a different warmth. Your presence brings a different peace. People around you may not understand the change at first, but they will feel it, a quiet strength, a steady hope, a genuine love that points beyond yourself to the one who called you. The call also awakens a deeper hunger for truth in a world filled with competing voices shouting for attention. The divine call stands apart because it does not manipulate, it does not flatter, it does not promise ease without purpose. Instead, it offers reality, the truth about who you are, a beloved creation with inherent worth, the truth about who the caller is, faithful, unchanging, good, the truth about the world, beautiful yet broken, in need of redemption, and the truth about the future filled with hope, because the one who began the story will bring it to completion. This hunger for truth leads to wisdom that navigates life with discernment, choosing integrity over popularity, generosity over greed, forgiveness over bitterness. The called life becomes a beacon not by striving for spotlight, but by simply reflecting the light of the one who spoke the name. Sometimes the call leads through refining fires, moments when circumstances test the sincerity of your response. The path may narrow, the comforts may decrease, the questions may multiply, yet these seasons are not signs of abandonment. They are invitations to deeper trust. The same way metal is purified by heat, so character is strengthened by trial. The voice that called Abraham to leave his homeland knew the journey would include unfamiliar lands and uncertain tomorrows, yet the promise remained I will be with you, I will bless you. The voice that called the apostle through shipwrecks and beatings never left him. Even in prison, the songs of praise still rose. The same faithful presence walks with you through your own refining. The call does not guarantee a life without difficulty, but it guarantees a life with divine companionship that turns every trial into an opportunity for growth and every setback into a setup for greater testimony. As the conversation with the voice deepens, you begin to notice how it speaks not only in words, but in the language of circumstances, aligned opportunities, unexpected provision, timely encouragement. The call weaves through the fabric of daily life, turning ordinary moments into sacred encounters. A conversation with a friend that stirs fresh insight, a scripture that feels personally addressed, a song that brings sudden clarity, a quiet impression to reach out to someone in need. These are the threads of the ongoing call, reminding you that the divine is not distant but intimately involved in the details. The one who knows the number of hairs on your head certainly knows the longings of your heart and the needs of your day. The call is both majestic and personal, grand enough to encompass the universe, yet tender enough to whisper your name in the night. The response to the call also ripples outward, touching lives you may never fully know. The young person who watches how you handle pressure and finds courage for their own journey, the coworker who notices your integrity and begins to question their own choices, the family member who sees peace in your eyes during stormy times and wonders where it comes from. One answered call becomes a living invitation for others to listen for the voice in their own lives. Your obedience may plant seeds that bloom in seasons you will never see on this side of eternity, yet the impact remains real and lasting. The kingdom advances not through loud declarations alone, but through quiet, faithful responses multiplied across countless hearts. In moments when the call feels faint or the noise of life drowns it out, remember the ancient patterns. The voice waited for Elijah, not in the wind, not in the earthquake, not in the fire, but in the gentle whisper after the storm. The same voice waits for you in the after of your own storms. It does not compete with chaos. It invites you to step away from it, even briefly, to find the still center where hearing becomes possible. Create those sacred pauses in your routine, a few minutes of silence in the morning, a walk without distractions, an evening reflection. These practices train the ear of the heart to recognize the familiar tone, the loving insistence, the personal address that says your name and invites you closer. Ultimately, the call is an expression of relentless love, the kind of love that pursued a rebellious humanity across centuries, the kind of love that stepped into history, wearing human flesh to bridge the distance, the kind of love that continues to knock at the door of every willing heart. This love does not force entry, it woos, it persuades, it patiently awaits the moment when the response comes willingly, freely, joyfully. When that happens, the relationship moves from distant awareness to intimate friendship, from occasion. The called one begins to live from a different center, anchored in the assurance that nothing can separate them from the love that first spoke their name. So as this day unfolds and the next and all the days that follow, keep your spirit attentive. The voice that called in gardens and deserts, tabernacles and roadsides is calling still. It calls you to come closer, to trust deeper, to live bolder, to love truer. Your name has been spoken with divine affection. The invitation stands open. The adventure of answering awaits. The transformation of a lifetime begins with a simple yet profound response here. I am, speak Lord, your servant is listening. The story that started long ago in the lives of those who heard their names continues today in you, and through you the voice is calling. The choice is yours. The beauty of what comes next is beyond what eyes have seen or ears have heard. It is prepared for those who love the one who calls. Let the echo of that call settle in your heart like a steady rhythm guiding your steps, a melody of grace, a promise of presence, a future of purpose. The God who called Samuel, Moses, Abraham, Saul, Martha, Mary, and countless others unseen, is calling your name in this very moment with the same power, the same love, the same hope that has never failed across all of time. Hear it, receive it, answer it, and step into the fullness of life that only the one who knows you completely can give. The call has gone forth once again, and it carries your name with tender, unmistakable clarity.